Not all stories are told in daylight. Here we tell you the stories they warn you not to repeat, and the ones they pray aren't true. Ask any ranger, and they'll tell you most nights in the backcountry are routine. Boring is what they want. But every ranger has one story that isn't boring. The night they never wrote in their report. The night they still can't explain. Tonight I have 3 of those stories. One ranger on tower duty, alone, overnight, discovers a logbook is still being written. Another, sent to a closed campground, finds the lake showing reflections that don't match the shore. And a third, patrolling for poachers, learns that not every howl in the forest belongs to a wolf. 3 rangers, 3 nights, 3 stories that still haunt them. I used to think the loneliest sound in the park was wind in dead pines. Spend enough nights on the backcountry patrol and you'll learn wind has moods. The hollow moan through the snags, the hiss across ice, the low, embarrassed exhale when a gust dies on a rock. You file it away with other ranger things, campfire smoke in your hair, the way your radio feels heavier after midnight. You tell yourself you know the noises that belong out there. Then you volunteer to sit a tower in the off-season, and the noises learn your name. It was January, dead quiet in the shoulder months. Our district isn't one of the famous parks. It's a sprawl of national forest and state land stitched together by logging roads and old fire scars. Spruce ridges, bog pockets, a river that runs brown as tea. We'd had weird winter lightning 2 nights in a row, enough to make dispatch twitchy about strikes smouldering under crusted snow. The old Cedar Knob lookout, a retired fire tower, was closest to a cluster of private inn holdings, so the chief wanted a ranger up there overnight for eyes on and radio relay until a weather break. Everyone else had reasons to say no. I didn't. I told myself I liked towers. I liked checklists. I liked being the spine in the middle of the map you draw lines around. If I'm honest, I also like the way the station goes quiet when you take a job nobody else wants. Cedar Knob is 32 feet to the catwalk, roughly 40 to the cab. Not a cathedral of a tower, just an old steel stick bolted onto a boulder. Guy wires whistling when the wind's right. The catwalk boards flex under you if you don't trust your feet. I parked the rig in the turnout, shouldered the pack with a thermos, batteries, and the kind of dinner that eats with a spoon, and climbed. The cab smelled like dust and mice. Somebody had left a coil stove on the counter 30 years ago and then forgotten the coil. The way people forget their youth. Present, useless, oddly precious. A map table sat under the windows. The kind with pencil lines and grease pencil circles for old smokes. Where the Osborne firefinder used to be was a square of darker plywood, like a missing tooth. The logbook was there too, on the shelf below the north window. It was a thick green ledger with the park crest embossed in the corner, dates hand-lettered across the spine, 1996 to 2008. I thumbed it open because that's what you do. Check what the last person wrote, even when last means 12 years before you were hired. Cedar Knob, unmanned as of October 12th, remove battery, said the final official entry. Below it, a line someone had added in pencil. Something's walking the tower legs after midnight. Don't look down when it does. No signature, no smiley face, just a sentence, grey and thin. I laughed. Not a big laugh, more a breath that tried to be a laugh and failed. People write things on tower logbooks, it's almost a ritual. I set my thermos beside it and went through the motions, crack the window east and west to taste the wind, sweep mouse droppings with a map folded into a pan, key my radio. Dispatch, Unit 14 at Cedar Knob. Cab secured, visibility good to Horizon Ridge, low ceilings to south. Stand by for overnight. Copy 14. Log hourly. Call if you get any returns on the west slope. Division A cleared a snag burn, but we don't like the barometer. Copy. There's a comfort to the way the tower night starts. You make the space yours on purpose. Stove in one corner for coffee, radio to your left elbow, binoculars somewhere your hand knows. You check the old wind-up clock because your phone doesn't like the cold. You find the light switch under the counter and click the bulbs off, so the cab is only the square of the map and the dark outside. The forest becomes a negative, the tower's reflection, your own face turned into glass. First hour? Nothing. A squirrel scolded from the guy wire anchor like I was inconveniencing his commute. The river sent up little breath sounds where pressure ridges were shifting. The sky went from blue to steel. I keyed in for a routine check. Second hour, flurries, then stars. The ridge to the west wore a hat of cloud like an old man. I noted a faint column that might have been breath from a cabin chimney down at Cedar Marsh. I told myself it was nice, the way the dark let you sort the little lights. Third hour. The wind came around to the north, and the guy wires started to sing. A single tone at first, then overtones when a gust plucked them hard. So the whole tower was a bad guitar. I felt it through the soles of my boots. I wrote wires humming, barometer steady in the logbook because writing things down made them true. Fourth hour. The sound under the floor. Not wind, not mice. A creak, and then a drag. Like weight shifting careful on the stair. The kind of sound wood makes when it doesn't want to, but must. I told myself it was thermal contraction. Old lumber ticks when two temperature systems meet. Like an argument in a marriage no one will remember in the morning. I went to the trap door and put my hand on the bolt. It was cold enough to burn, so I left it. At the half, the radio coughed. N14, repeat that. I hadn't keyed the mic. I looked at the handset like it had grown a second mouth. The repeaters burp sometimes, skip from truckers, a weather station that hasn't been decommissioned correctly. I told myself it was one of those and reached for the transmit. Dispatch, Unit 14, no traffic. U-10-9? Silence. Just a soft breath of carrier tone, like the radio thinking about speaking. Then, a very faint. Unit 14, you're not alone. I froze. It was my own voice. Well, not exactly. The cadence was wrong, like hearing a recording of yourself from a room over. Close enough to raise a hair on your arms. I set the handset down on the map table like it was glass. I didn't answer. I told myself it was interference. One of the other rangers playing with tone generators. The mind will build a sensible house out of any scrap if it keeps the cold out. Something tapped the leg. Not the guy wires. The steel. A tap, tap, tap. Like glove the knuckles testing a beam. I moved without deciding to. One step, then another, towards the south window. The slope below was a dark erasure. My breath fogged the glass. Something pale crossed the strip of snow in the beam from my lantern. A long, thin shape that could have been a branch in wind, could have been a trick of my eyes, could have been how a person looks when weather and wrongness pull them into a different geometry. I felt my hands curl against the sill. I wrote in the logbook, wind shift, no confirmed smokes. Because that's how you don't talk to the fear, you write things down. The clock said 1:40 when the second voice came on the radio. Not mine this time, not dispatch. Dry as paper. Legs again. Don't look down. Static chewed the end of the sentence. It sounded like it came from inside the cab. I swung the light low towards the trapdoor, mad at myself for needing to. The bolt hadn't moved. Picking up the radio. Dispatch 14. I'm getting... I stopped. What? What was I getting? Possible interference on channel. Copy interference, the real dispatch said this time. The comfort of her breath between words. We've got repeaters piggybacked on B-net until 9. Weather is moving in heavy over Division C. You good up there? I'm good. Copy. Hourly at 2. Call if you see smoke. The wind sagged. The guy wires went quiet. I heard the tower instead. The steel uneasy at its own cold. The catwalk boards settling around their screws with little wooden sighs. I put my palm on the logbook without meaning to. The last entry in the book was said, remove battery. The pencil line below it said, don't look down. And the next page was blank. I flipped a few more, blank, blank. A coffee ring 3/4 of a circle, faint as a bad moon. A smudge where a thumb had paused. Nothing else there. I put my own thermos down and watched the condensation halo it made. The same 3/4 ring. And what? I said aloud. My voice in the empty cabin sounded like a radio too. It sounded like someone else was asking me not to lie. At 1:58 I wrote, no change. Wind light, no smoke. Almost felt like an oath. At 2:04, the logbook had a new line I didn't write. 2:04, no change. Wind light. Don't answer if it knocks. My pen was still in my hand. The ink of that line was the same blue as mine. I pressed my thumb to it. It was dry. The page smelt faintly like the air right before you pull a sweater over your head in the dark. I closed the book, opened it again. The line was still there. You learn out here that panic is a choreography. Heart first, gut next, breath last. If you can interrupt the sequence anywhere, you get to decide how the next minute goes. I set the pen down. I poured a coffee I didn't want. I counted the squares in the map east to west, north to south, like a child counting floor tiles until the dark loses its shape. At 2:20, something knocked on the trap door. 3 slow, steady knocks. I didn't move. The old bolt had a flake of frost like a tongue. The knocking came again, and the third tap slid into a drag against the wood, like a fingertip thinking about tracing grain. The radio popped. Hourlies, 14. Dispatch, bored. The complicated mercy of boredom. No smokes, no traffic. I could hear my own tongue in my mouth. Copy. We like quiet. Get you off there by 9 if the front doesn't stall. I wanted to tell her about the pencil line. I wanted to tell her about how still can feel watched. Instead, I just said, copy 9, and watched my breath fog the window where my reflection's face should have been. It looked like the cab had eaten me from the shoulders up. Sometime after 3, the tower decided to pretend it was warm. I know that it isn't physics, but it's true. The air went soft around my ears. The smell in the cabin changed. The hint of mice and dust sinking underneath something sweeter, like sap burned and cooled and burned again. I felt lonely in my skin the way you feel lonely in a gym after close, the way echo feels when it wants your voice to be brave for it. I leaned on the counter because doing nothing is easier when you make a shape of it. When I stood again, the logbook was open to page 4 away from where I'd stopped. The top line was clean and in my hand. 3:11, hard breathing below deck. I ran my finger over breathing. I could feel the impression my pen didn't make. I flipped back to the page with don't answer if it knocks, then forward. There it was. 3:11, hard breathing below deck. Below it, another line in a shriveled pencil script I didn't recognize. 3:12, if you look down, you'll teach it your face. I slammed the book closed in a panic. I said things out loud, it didn't matter what. I named parts of the radio, the mic, handset, PTT, RX, TX. I named the countries we share mutual aid with. I named all the trailheads on the east side in order like a rosary. When you run out of gods, you count inventory. I didn't look down. It got colder again. You can feel that in your teeth. I thought the night had decided to be civilized when the ground below the tower gave a little, just a little, like something heavy took its hands off the stairs. At 3:30, the radio carried a voice that wasn't dispatch and wasn't mine. Younger, hurt, or embarrassed to be heard.
I can see you. Wave back.
My hand twitched. The window glass caught it and made me a ghost waving to myself.
Unit 14, copy.
Real dispatch again. Her rhythm reset my heart.
Sorry, we lost the repeater. B-net is a mess. You good?
I'm good, I lied. Visibility low, negative smokes.
Copy that.
By 4, the sky had that old paper colour you only get when clouds have walked away to find you. The valley begins to lift its head from the dark. The guy wires did their first tired chords. I told myself morning is just a tide that eventually takes everything. When I looked down, because of course I looked down, I did it by accident. Through the catwalk slap, not over the rail. My eye found the leg of where the tapping had been. The snow there was polished smooth, like hands had worked it. A little ring of bare earth showed where a boot should have scuffed months ago. There were no tracks coming or going, just the fact of a circle, the way ocean makes facts out of rocks. The logbook was open again, without me opening it. The time-stamped line waiting for me to read. 04:06. Sunlight won't fix it. Wait for wind. Okay, I said to no one. I waited. The wind came grudgingly, then generously. The tower sighed like a horse adopting your pace. The wires took up their song. When I keyed the radio for 4:30, my voice sounded like a person's voice and not an echo of one. Dispatch 14, no smokes, front lifting.
Copy 14, you'll have relief at 9. Division A requests you log any trespass lights if they pop. We've got some kids using sleds on the logging road.
Copy trespass. I made coffee. I didn't drink it. I poured it into the logbook instead, so the paper puckered and turned a sepia map of itself. That felt like defiance and relief. Something childish too. The coffee ran through the spine and stopped in a neat line like a photograph developing. The logbook blinked. That's not how paper works, I know, but it did. One page ahead went from blank to written as if a hand had passed over it that my eye couldn't keep up with. The letters were mine, the words weren't. 0612. Do not descend after dusk ever again. Dispatch 14. I keyed without thinking, then keyed off without speaking. I didn't want to ask a question that came out of the book. At 7, a line hung low in the east and pretended to be sun. The map table looked like a map of a different park, one where the rivers took their time and the towers weren't sticks but bones. I packed my things because leaving is another ritual. Move the cup, coil the forward, fold the map. I smoothed the logbook closed. Set it where I found it and put a split of cedar on top like a paperweight. The cedar smelt like the inside of old drawers. My boot was on the first step down when the radio spoke one last time, in my cadence that wasn't my cadence. Leave the book where it lives. I don't remember making the decision, only the shape of it. I took the cedar off the cover, tucked the logbook under my coat the way you smuggle a kitten from a barn you're not allowed to visit. I clipped to the rail and went down. The stairs felt longer than 32 feet. Every ricocheted breath on the steel felt like figure 8 knots slipping in a climber's hands. My boots hit snow. The circle under the leg was just a steel foot on frozen ground. The polished ring was a lie I chose not to investigate. The sky was daylight plain. The river was just water being itself in the winter. The map folded back into a map. At the rig I keyed dispatch. Unit 14, clearing sailor knob. No smokes, no trespass, log off tower ops.
Copy 14, return to station. Nice work.
Copy. The station smelled like coffee and wet dog and things with names. Chief asked how the view was. I said boring, because boring is the word you give in a night that took your breath and returned it in pieces. I took the logbook to my desk, and because cowardice is also a ritual, slid it into the bottom drawer under trail brochures and laminated maps. I meant to forget it. I didn't. Sometimes, on late shift, when the weather sits on the building like sleeping animal and the hall clock waits too long between ticks, the drawer gets cold. Not the whole drawer, just the inch of space where the logbook leans. If I open it then, the book will have moved to the top of the stack. If I open it again, it will be on my desk with my pen across it, and the page will be open to tonight. There'll be a line in my handwriting that I haven't written yet. It will say something practical like 2309, siren test woke up the ravens. Or it will say something I can fit into paperwork. 0034, truck headlights on the wrong road. It never says anything like don't answer if it knocks anymore. Maybe the book learned my job. Maybe it learned I wouldn't. I still haven't told the chief. What would I say? Hey, the retired tower is keeping a second set of records that arranges itself when you look away. We all collect our own weird. Mine just fits in a drawer. The last time the logbook wrote ahead of me, it was Monday, and the kind of wind that scours sand from the stream beds. The line said 1842. Boy missing near Cedar Marsh. Calls for help aren't his. I didn't like it. I didn't like that at all. We did have a missing kid call at 1839. The boy was found before midnight, asleep under a canoe at a private camp. His voice on the radio when his mother held the mic was thin with cry. My log says, child located, AO clear. The green book's page stayed the way it was. You can say coincidence and be right. You can say my brain is sorting shapes into handwriting because it wants the world to keep being a map. You can say I should burn the book. I tried. The first match went out, the second hissed. On the third, I realised I didn't want to know what the logbook sounds like when it burns. I take the logbook back to Cedar Knob sometimes. On my days off, climb, unlock, set it on the sill. The tower looks like a harmless thing in daylight, a stick with a shack on it. I leave the book where it lived and sit on the floor with my thermos and listen to the guy wires practice a song they sing that night for some other shift in some other year. People ask rangers for our scary stories like we're vending machines. You want me to tell you that there's a cougar with a man's laugh, or a thing that walks like a man until snow teaches it otherwise, or a light that pretends to be a ranger truck and then isn't. Maybe those exist, maybe they're just wind in snags. I can tell you, there's a logbook in a tower that was supposed to be unmanned after 2008, that it kept watch anyway. I can tell you the person who wrote Don't Look Down had small handwriting and a pencil that didn't like the cold. I can tell you the sentence, leave the book where it lives, reads like a joke if you say it fast, and like a rule if you say it in the dark. Mostly, I can tell you this. There are nights in these forests where boring is a blessing. When your own voice on the radio is the only voice you should hear. When you let the wind have its song, and you keep your eyes where they belong. On the horizon, not the legs, not the trapdoor, not the blank page that wants to know what you'll write. If you ever find yourself in a tower in winter, and you feel the steel beam learn your weight, and you hear something polite knock when there isn't a neighbour, do the sensible thing. Log your hour, pour your coffee, wait for wind. And if the book reads itself, don't read ahead. Most nights on the backcountry patrol are boring. That's the truth people never believe. You check a few trailheads, you log the weather. Maybe you ticket some teenagers who think closed for season is a dare. Boring means everyone goes home safe. This wasn't one of those nights. It was late September, end of the season, when most of the campgrounds up near Boundary Ridge were already shut. The water was too cold for canoeists, the bugs had gone, the rangers were down to a skeleton crew. I drew a swing shift because the gate camera flagged the light at the Hemlock Lake Campground. A reflection of flame maybe, but from across the water. Could have been kids sneaking in, could have been a hunter ignoring closures. My job was to drive 10 miles of dirt road, check it out, log it, and get back before midnight. Hemlock's one of those campgrounds people either love or hate. 10 sites around a kettle lake, 2 pit toilets, a hand pump for water. In summer it smells like citronella and wood smoke. In fall, it's empty as a church on Tuesday. The lake sits down in a bowl of hills, so even a match looks bright from a ridge. That night the moon was thin and the water was flat as poured oil. I parked at the gate, grabbed my flashlight, and walked in. Half the sites were bare. Picnic tables tipped, fire rings cold. But when I got to site 7, the one right against the water, I stopped. The fire ring was still warm, not lit, no flame, no glow. But the ash had that baked look, like it had held heat not long ago. A 2-person tent stood 6 feet from the ring. No footprints around it, no tyre tracks on access road. The dirt was too firm for prints, but you learn to read scuff and pressure. And this site looked placed, not lived in. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 22 at Hemlock Lake. Got an active site, no permit on record. Fire ring warm, investigating.
Copy 22, no parties registered for Hemlock. Proceed with caution.
I walked the perimeter, call on the table, food still inside. A sleeve of crackers, a half jar of peanut butter, both fresh. Sleeping bags unrolled in the tent, neat, not slept in. The whole place felt staged. Then I saw the reflection. The lake was still as glass. In the water's surface, the fire ring glowed orange, flame licking at stones. I turned. The ring behind me was black and dead. I looked back down. In the reflection, the fire burned steady. My chest went tight. I've seen heat mirages, optical tricks, sure. But this wasn't a shimmer. This was fire where no fire burned. I walked to the edge, knees bending with the slope, and leaned closer. That's when I saw the tent. On shore, zipped shut, still as fabric gets in dead air. In the reflection, the flap hung open, sagging like something had just crawled through. I don't scare easily. I tell myself that anyway. I crouched, dipped my glove in the water to break the surface. Ripples spread, distorting the picture. When the ring settled, my reflection came back wrong. It was me, but delayed. A half second behind. I lifted my hand. The water hand lifted late. I leaned forward. The water me lagged. Then caught up too fast, like it wanted to meet my eyes. The radio hissed.
Unit 22, status?
I jerked back from the shore. My reflection didn't. It kept leaning forward, face close to the water, long enough for me to see the mouth open. Dispatch 22, active site, but no occupants. Continuing sweep. My voice shook. I hoped she didn't hear it. I zipped the tents, even though it was already zipped. I scattered the food into the bear box. Ranger habits. Keep order, control what you can. Then I was drawn back to the water. Now there were 2 figures in the reflection. Mine, standing still. And another, taller, pale against a tree line. Behind me, the shore was empty. I spun, flashlight beam raking trunks and brush. Nothing but birch and spruce and the smell of cold water. My light cut back to the lake. The second figure was closer now, standing at the water me's shoulder. I grabbed the mic. Dispatch. Confirm no other units near Hemlock tonight.
Affirmative 22. You're solo out there. Everything alright?
I stared at the glass surface. My reflection lifted its hand again, but not to match me. It lifted on its own. Palm open towards a tall figure. Copy. Solo. Will advise. I should have left then. I should have packed the tent, doused the ring, written the violation, and cleared out. But I couldn't look away. I crouched again, closer this time, until my boots sank in the damp soil. The water smell filled my nose, cold and mineral. I dipped my glove in again, just to prove control. I brought up a palm of lake water. Cold burned my skin. For some reason, I drank. Reflex, stupid ranger thing. Taste the water, know the source. When I swallowed, I looked down again. My reflection didn't. It still held the water in its hand, still staring at the surface, as if waiting for me to follow. I backed up fast, heart hammering. The ripples broke the picture. When it smoothed again, both figures were gone. Just me, just the trees, just the night. I logged the site as cleared. I wrote it neat, factual, no panic in the lines. Unpermitted use, site vacated, no persons present. Fire pit cold. I didn't note the reflection. By the time I reached the gates, the sky was quivering. Owls giving way to crows. My radio stayed dead quiet. At headquarters, I washed my hands in the sink, the way you do after field work. Water pooled around my fingers, clear under fluorescent lights. I should have seen my reflection. I should have seen soap bubbles catching skin. Instead, the basin showed the tent flap unzipping, the fire blooming, and two figures standing at the lake's edge, one with my face. I shut off the tap, the basin went empty. My hands dripped like nothing had changed. I haven't been back to Hemlock since. Other rangers cover it now. But sometimes, when I bend to tie my boots or lean over a coffee mug, the surface of the liquid ripples late. Not always, just enough. And once in the mirror at the station, I caught it plain. The reflection didn't match. It was still down there, kneeling by the water, waiting. People always ask me if wolves scare me. I tell them no, wolves belong here. When you hear them sing across a valley, it means the land is still wild enough to need them. What scares me is when the sound is wrong. This all happened in late December, when the park was bone quiet under snow. I've been assigned a 3-day backcountry patrol up near Cutbank Ridge, looking for illegal trap lines. We get them every winter. Snares strung along deer runs, bait piles set near logging cuts. Poachers haul out the animals on snowmobiles and sell the fur to whoever doesn't care how it's taken. It was the kind of cold that makes leather squeak. 15 below, dry air biting my nose raw. Pack straps stiff against my shoulders. My snowshoes creaked like hinges with every step. Routine work. I like routine. You log the miles, check the drainages, and report what you find. Easy stuff. That afternoon, I found a wolf scat near the bend in the river trail, fresh, steam still curling off into the cold. I knelt. Poked with a stick out of habit, mostly herringbone, rabbit, probably. But the shards looked wrong, too large, like finger bones. I told myself they were squirrel femurs. I wrote it neat in my notebook. Wolf scat, fresh, probable hair. Close the book, keep walking. Towards dusk, the first howl came, long, rising, tapering off. The kind of sound that settles into your ribs. A second followed, quick, too quick. They overlapped, same pitch, same length, like an echo that didn't wait its turn. The hair on my neck went stiff. Wolves chorus in packs, sure, but their voices weave. These were identical. I keyed the radio. Unit 22, Cutbank Patrol, multiple wolves vocalizing, South Ridge. Static answered. Then a scrap of my own voice bled back through. Multiple wolves vocalizing, South Ridge. I froze. The repeater can burp sometimes, but it doesn't usually copy your own call word for word. I tried again. Dispatch, confirm readback. Silence. Just snow settling in the pines. I pushed on. The trail bent towards the ridge, where the timber thinned. That's where I found the tracks. At first they looked normal. Big, rounded wolf prints, 4 toes, claw marks faint. But after 20 yards, the pattern changed. The forepaws vanished. The high prints stretched long, deep, like something started running bipedal, leading 20 feet between impacts. Then, just as suddenly, the stride shortened. The forepaws returned, like the animal had dropped back onto all fours. I knelt, set my glove in the one print. My whole hand fit in with room to spare. I measured the stride with my pole. Too long, too heavy. The forest had gone dead quiet. No jays, no owls, not even the crack of a branch in the cold. That silence, the wrong kind, pressed against my ears. Then the crunch came. Snow compacting under weight, pacing me in the timber to my right. I stopped. It stopped. I moved. It moved. Always just out of sight, never rushing, never falling back. By dark, I'd had enough. Protocol said make camp and resume at first light. I cleared a pad in the snow, built a small fire, set my tent. The heat barely took the edge off. That's when the circling began. Footsteps in the snow. Slow. Deliberate. Right on the edge of the firelight. Never closer, never further. I sat with my back to the tent, rifle across my knees, counting each pass. 10 steps. 10 steps. At midnight, a howl split the air right above me. My fire spat sparks as if the sound had weight, then nothing. No more circling, just my own breath and the hiss of pine burning. I didn't sleep. By morning, the tracks circled my camp in a perfect ring. Not wolf tracks, not human. A mix, morphing from one to the other as if the snow couldn't decide what had passed. I packed fast, half frozen, and pushed for the ridge. The sky bruised purple with evening as I reached the cut line. I turned my headlamp on. The beam carved silver and black shapes out of the timber. That's when I saw the eyes. Wolves glow amber in the light. These were pale, almost white, shining too long. The shape stepped into the beam. Wolf-like at first, low, broad-shouldered, narrow head. Then it rose higher, taller than any wolf, taller than a man. Limbs too long, joints bending like it hadn't decided which way they belonged. Its muzzle gaped, but no breath steamed out. We stared at each other across 20 yards of snow. I forced myself to lift my notebook, tried to log what I saw like protocol demanded. My hand wouldn't write. The words wouldn't stay true. Then it leaned back, head tilting, not at me, but at the canopy, as if something else waited above us both. And in one smooth motion, it melted into the trees. No sound, no crunch of snow, just gone. I don't remember the next 2 miles, only the relief when the snow under me turned to a gravel plough line, and the beam of my truck's headlight cut the dark. I climbed in, locked the doors, and keyed the mic. Unit 22, clear. Negative all sign, no trap lines, returning to station. While my voice sounded steady, it was a lie. I sat there with the heater blasting, trying to feel human again. When my fingers thawed, I noticed my boots were soaked through, leather dark with melt. I hadn't stepped in water, only snow. That's when I heard it. A soft shift above me, snow sliding off metal. I looked up through the windshield. Clean. The hood was clean. But on the roof of the truck, pressed deep into the crust, were paw prints. Not dog, not wolf, bigger, heavier, leading front to back, stopping right above where my head rested. I started the engine. I didn't look up again. I drove until pavement met lights, and lights meant I could stop pretending my own breath was enough company. I looked at patrol as uneventful, but sometimes that's what survival looks like. But even now, when winter settles on my truck, I find myself checking the roof before I drive, and praying the snow is clean. The truth is, most ranger nights are calm. No logbooks writing themselves, no strange figures in the water, no tracks that don't belong to wolf nor man. But every ranger has one night they don't forget. And they don't always tell those stories, not in official reports, not at the station, sometimes not to each other. These are ones that have slipped through. Whether you believe them or not, remember this. Boring keeps you alive. And the rangers pray. Every shift stays boring. That concludes tonight's Ranger Stories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. It helps more people find these tales. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more long-form horror, folklore, and Ranger confessions. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then, stay safe out there. And may your nights stay boring.